Yeah, actually, a question for both parties. So you've spoken quite a bit about Switzerland and Norway and how you think that the UK can get a lot of benefits of the European Union without actually being part of it. Would you then sort of normatively endorse the idea of complete dissolution of the European Union, as in, the French and the Germans, etc.? And do you not think that the UK leaving the EU wouldn't set a precedent for other countries such as Germany or France or Portugal also leaving?
No, thank you. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I would say, as I said, every country has to follow its own national interest, and we're not out to bring down the EU per se. We just take a hard-nosed attitude. It's not good for the UK, and for various reasons about the cost aspect, the way it controls our freedoms, our loss of freedom as a nation state. We're not out, as I say, to bring it down. I mean, there may be countries that wish to pull out of the EU, but you see, the point is, I mean, my personal opinion, as a person on UKIP policy, I'd like to see a European Commonwealth. I'd like to see a looser arrangement of European states, where you don't have the issue like with Turkey. Is it European, isn't it? Do you get 70 million Turks having the right to come and work here? All of these issues about migration, huge movements, which comes with the EU. I'd rather see a looser arrangement where countries, nation states come together and actually work together in a harmonious way, but actually retain their national sovereignty. Because when you get into an issue where you're overriding very important national interests within, qualified majority voting, etc., if you're overriding important national interests, you can actually stoke up some very serious democratic problems. Where people say, well, what are you doing? We've lost control of the EU. It's not just us saying it. I mean, Germany is very worried about it. Even the French are worried about it to some extent. So the point is, I think we do need to look at a better model. But I do stress, we're not out to bring down the EU. We're taking this view that the UK really is better off having a free trade agreement, because democratically in 1975 we agreed for a common market. We did not agree to a constitution. We did not agree to a political superstate. And I think, number one, we're Democrats first, and that's why we object to this, because it's not been democratically agreed. It'd be a different matter if it was.
I was so carried away with dealing with myth number 2, I forgot about myth number 3, and if I may just deal with myth number 3. For Britain to be forced to give up a seat on the United Nations Security Council would require the most amazing coincidence of events that I invite you to suggest. I suggest to you it would be several million years before these might all come together. Because first of all, Britain would have to agree to this proposal coming forward within the European Union itself. Now I don't know, but I think pretty well every politician I've ever met would say no to that idea. So I think, therefore, it is a non-starter. It will not get out of the first lunatic observation made by any bureaucrat or any other politician elsewhere in the European Union. So that's the first hurdle. I just don't think that. The second thing is the small matter of the United Nations Charter itself and the arrangements which set up the United Nations. We are independent, sovereign members of the United Nations in our own right. So we'd actually have to renegotiate the entire arrangements for the Security Council of the United Nations. Now I think that if we were to open that up, having meekly conceded the point that we were giving up our seat, you might just find that Japan and others might just come in and say, well, please, we'd like a permanent seat instead. We don't think that you as Europe matter anymore. We as China, or China's the right, India, very keen to ensure that they're growing economic clout, which David has referred to, that gets recognised. The South Africans or the Nigerians might say, well, where's Africa's voice in the Security Council? So I don't think we need to worry about this. It's not happening any day soon. I predict it's not going to happen in the lifetime of any single person in this room. Now, to come back to the point that I appreciate we're in an academic environment where normative is used. In Westminster, we rarely get to these highfalutin heights. I think it's bonkers. I just think the idea that we should come out is daft. I think the idea that somehow persuade the rest of Europe to loosen their ties amongst each other is equally mad. And I think that the whole debate is missing the crucial context of globalisation. The pace of economic, development in the world, the speed at which decisions are taken in Scotland and affect people on the other side of the world, or the other side of the world and affect us here in Scotland, is unrecognisable from 20 years ago when I was sitting in lecture theatres in this great university. The cultural speed at which information is passed around the world, the way that people are free through the internet to communicate with each other wherever they are in the world, to share ideas wherever they are in the world. And the idea that somehow we are better to be loose and outside of that and not in terms of trading and in terms of security, together and working with our partners, I think is absolutely barking mad. Next one.
So first one, an image of you matched tweeted onto the uniforms. There's one thing, I think there's similarities between you. Both parties don't have any real chance of getting international governance, so you have the ease of opposition and making appeals to popular opinion. You both believe that the UK has its own place in a political entity, and with a perfectly amicable relationship with the rest of the world. And do you feel you're actually, either one of you are articulating popular opinions to Mr. Kutas or the Mr. Jedleys or Ms. Marcos, or do you actually have any real plans for the governance, achieving it through prayer, fasting and hard reading? Does that make sense?
I take the rebuke. I'm not sure I fully accept it, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. Yes, we can't help. I mean, we've not coordinated our choice ties clearly, but we are both handicapped by being middle-aged white blokes who wear suits and ties to reflect what we do for a living. There will come a day when the House of Commons no longer requires this, but I'm afraid it is a little while off as yet. I don't think that I represent, I'm not quite sure whether the charge is that we just play to the popular beliefs on this, or that we're so irrelevant that no matter what we say doesn't count. I would certainly refute that latter point, because while David and I are worlds apart in our political opinions, the British political debate, the Scottish debate within the British debate, is a very lively one. And influence and power comes in many different ways. And I don't know if people have noticed, but the polls at the moment have been really quite fluid, so everything is up for grabs at the next election. And I think it does matter that there are people in the debate who are committed to being part of Europe. I don't know if a Conservative or a Labour or a Scottish National Party politician were sitting in my place here this evening, how differently they might be arguing these particular points. But each of those parties, except the SNP from this, have got large degrees of Euroscepticism within them. Large streams of people who are very worried about Europe. Now, I'm not blind to its flaws, but I want to see reform, but as I hope I made clear, I want to see us continue to be strong parts of Europe. And whatever techniques I have to use to be a good politician, I will take on board from her, which is suggesting, and I apologise if in the meantime our similarities of appearance confuse about the message that we're trying to get across.
Yeah, it's mostly actually between you. So there's no, I don't think his name. Me.
Oh, I'm funny.
Yeah.
It's not like it.
Just to apologise, we look too similar or whatever. In fact, our colours are quite similar at times, but in terms of party colours. But I would say it's funny. The Liberals obviously have been there. There were times when they said, you could hold Liberal cabinet meetings in a taxi cab, and credit to them.
Oh, I don't think we're letting lectures from you.